The 6 steps are, first of all, we review the role. We don't just select somebody. We do the very, 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 very important work of knowing how long the term length is. A year? 8 months? 6 months? This is crucial. You will see why. Then we put down what are the tasks that the person will do in that role. We write them. They're in big letters. They're on some kind of flip chart paper or whiteboard where we can see it. We do not skip this place. We do not. You will see why. And then the next thing we have is the qualifications to even do those tasks. That is to say, what are the requirements for the person to do these tasks? Let's say we're choosing someone in our finance circle for the role of bookkeeper. As you can see, there are certain tasks that a bookkeeper does. And let's say that all this time up till now, our books were kept in QuickBooks. That's the online bookkeeping, one of the online bookkeeping programs. So one of the tasks that we write under responsibilities of the role is do the bookkeeping. And another one of the requirements is knows how to do bookkeeping and knows how to use QuickBooks. See? We make it crystal clear and we separate it out. The length of time they'll do it, precisely what we're going to ask them to do in terms of their tasks, and what are the requirements to do those tasks. And only that. Then we have desired characteristics. These are optional things. They don't have to have these desired characteristics. But we might want to list some things. P.S. Please note, it's a really good idea to note in the role's desired characteristics that the person can get along well with others and has a reputation for collegial, congenial, cooperative working with others. Why is that? You will see. Okay? After we've got that written down and it's clear and it's in front of our eyes and we know what they are and we've agreed, we have consented to that, is what are the term length of that role, the tasks in the role, the requirements of the role, and some desired characteristics. Then we go to step number 2. But first of all, let me ask you, do you suppose making it crystal clear the term length, the tasks, and the requirements allows us to modify proposals later? Because we can change those things. I just wanted to give you some advance notice. We may wish to change those things in order to suit our circumstances. Okay? The next thing we do is we all have little papers. And on that little paper, we write, first of all, our name, John Hancock, but we don't have to put our last name. I'm just giving you a silly name. And then we put who it is that we nominate. I nominate Thomas Jefferson. I nominate Tom. So we put our name and we put the name of the person we nominate on this paper. And that is called submit nomination forms. I, Diana, nominate Rings as a workshop of Jack of all trades. Okay, and then we turn all of those papers over to the facilitator, who either on the floor or on their lap, better a table, they look at them. And they have a pen or pencil in their hand, and they pick one of them, and they say, Sarah, you nominated Lydia for the role of something. And then I say, as the facilitator, would you tell us why? And then you tell us why. Guess what? She nominated Lydia specifically according to the term length, because she knew that Lydia could do it, or she thinks she can. And she nominated Lydia because the tasks of the role were these, and she knew or believes that Lydia could do those tasks. And she nominated Lydia because the requirements to do the tasks she knew that Lydia had. And possibly because she knew Lydia had some desired characteristics. Optional, right? So that's why she, Sarah, nominated Lydia. So as soon as I say, okay, Sarah, you nominated Lydia for the role of la la la, would you tell us why? or I just say why. Or I don't say anything because we're so well trained, we know that this is where the person that I call on as facilitator says why. I'd like Lydia in this role because, or much more simply, why. Please hold your questions until I finish this explanation. Okay, so then I, as the facilitator, are probably writing on the nomination form some of the reasons why. I want to be able to remember them. Okay, then I pick up another paper in no particular order, because these papers aren't necessarily in the order of how we're sitting in the circle. Let's pick up the next one and say, okay, you, Anna, nominated Alex. Will you tell us why? And then you tell us why. Ladies and gents, the reason that you nominate somebody is because they can do it according to this. Not because they're your friend, not because they're popular, not because they're way cool, not because of any reason that might be personal preference, but because you know they can fit this and they can do these things and they have these qualifications, they may or may not have these things. We also know that because of role improvement feedback, that we can help them get better in the role. Who helps them? We do, and they do. We do it together. It's a very nice process. You're going to like it. We'll do it after we learn this one. Okay, so the reasons that you nominated Alex, Anna, you tell us, and they're connected to this. Okay, so then we ask the third person, and we hear what each person says. That is the second step, chair reasons round. The third. The fourth step is the invite changes round. Some of us may have changed our mind. Why did we change our mind? We were convinced by the reasons that we heard for the nomination of Lydia or the nomination of Alex. Are we voting? No, we're nominating. Okay, people often use the word vote, so I'm trying to call attention to the fact that it works better and better for how we're learning this thing to not use the word vote. Okay, so let's say that each person in our circle nominated Lydia or nominated Alex. Let's say we're a small circle, right? We're a functional circle. There's not that many of us in here. And it's very, very clear. Now let's say that either Lydia or Alex could absolutely do these tasks, and we know it. And absolutely you met the qualifications, and we know it. And either one of them could do a perfectly fine job. Do they have to do a perfect job?
No.
What kind of job do they need to do for the now that is the term length? And they have to be what enough to try?
Safe enough to try.
Okay, well, shall we find out? Okay, let's find out. So that is the opportunity to change your mind and nominate a person and change your nomination to somebody. Why would you change your nomination? Why? You would do it because you were convinced by the reasoned arguments. Not arguments, but, clear, reasonable, logical, makes sense, and connects to this reasons. Okay? Let's say that Alex had done it before and had lots of experience. We might change to Alex because we wanted someone experienced. Or we might change from Alex to Lydia because we wanted her to get the experience, because we know we're going to help her. So we have the change around. And we hear from each person. And this time we are going around in a circle, starting somewhere, including the facilitator, to find out why we changed, and here's why. We changed from this, or we say, I keep my nomination. So I, the facilitator, I'm picking up these papers and writing down the reasons why, so I can remember it. It's not too hard. There's not that many people in our circle. Okay, John Buck wants us all not to do this. Some of his fellow Sociocracy trainers asked him to put it in that summary sheet I told you about, the one with all the colors and the arrows and the saves. So I put it here because it was on that, and John said, please take that off your poster. It doesn't really help at all to have a discussion. John Schinnerer, whom you met, says the same thing. So I think I'm going to revise this. Anyway, we go to the consent round. The facilitator proposes one of the nominated candidates for the role. If both folks seem equivalently able to do it, it's reasonable for the facilitator to say something like, well, I think that either Lydia or Alex could do it. Seems to me like they'd be equally good at this and equally able to do these tasks for us. And I propose, and then I would say who. Now, let's say I proposed Alex because I thought more of us, because I'm guessing, may have an interest in his doing what he's already really qualified to do because he's done it before. Perhaps because of our circumstances, which is we need that task to be done really, really well, and he does have a bit more experience, and for some reason, it doesn't actually matter too much, but it's a proposal. Is the facilitator choosing the person? No. On the other hand, it can work out that way because the only reason to object is because you can see how it violates one of these. That they can't do it because of the term length, they don't have one of the tasks, or they don't have the requirements to do it. That is a good reason to object. How do we modify the objections? Is this a black mark against that person? Is it like asking them to walk the plank? Is it an insult to them? Is it a negative slap in the face? Is it designed to say, I don't think you have value, person who was proposed? No, it doesn't mean that. It means I know some information. I think they don't know this so well. Let's find out. Let's ask them now. But I'm leaping ahead. After the facilitator proposes somebody, and here are the reasons. It's not because of how many people nominated them. It's not because we just ask them, can you do it, do you want to? We don't ask them. We don't ask them. So we just say, okay, I'm proposing Alex for all of the reasons you said, and because he's done it before. And I think either candidate that we have nominated would do an equally good job. And so then we have a consent round. Okay, this is the consent round. Please say objection or no objection. We'll start with you, Lynette. And we go around. Facilitator includes him or herself. No objection, no objection, no objection, no objection, no objection. Okay, fine. We're done. Thank you. And now Alex is our new, let's say, bookkeeper. Let's say there's an objection and we ask the person why. Well, the reason why is because we know that Alex is going to another country in 8 months and won't be here. Then when we resolve the objections, what might we do? Change the term length. Get a vice president of bookkeeping. Ask Alex to do the bookkeeping for that 8 months and train Lydia for the last month, and then she takes over in the role. So here's the new proposal. Okay, here's the new proposal, that Alex does this for 8 months, trains Lydia at the 7th month for a month, and then Lydia takes over to complete the term length. That's the proposal. We'll start with you, Sarah. Please say objection or no objection. See how simple that was? It wasn't a slap in the face at Alex. It was a piece of data that we didn't have. Or it could have to do with these things. It doesn't have to do with desired characteristics because that is optional. Desired but not required. Okay? All right. We just take objections if there are any. We resolve them. We go back to a consent round. We take objections if there are any. We go back to a consent round. Here's some things not to do. Don't do as we often do in many communities and groups and select a person for a role indefinitely. Okay, we do not elect somebody from an unlimited term. It's way easier to select a person for a limited period of time and we know when it's going to end. Because then we're much more willing to select a person that we may not be sure how they'll do. Because we know there'll be an end and we know there'll be role improvement feedback. Okay? Another thing we don't do is say, okay, who volunteers for this? Anybody want to do this? Can you see why we don't do that? What's the reason we don't do that?
Well, it doesn't necessarily follow 1, 2, 3 term lengths, tasks, requirements.
It might not
That's
be best for the job.
That person who wants to do it may not be somebody that we would have nominated. because we don't think they meet all of these things, like Paul said. Okay. Somebody in the room who wants to do that role and can do that role, they don't do this. They don't go, I can do it, I can do it. Why is that we ask them not to do that?
It creates tension at that point because somebody's saying they want this, and then it puts the group in a position of saying, no, we don't want you. And it just
Right.
creates
It hurts.
dynamic that's
It
not
hurts.
necessary.
Yes, it hurts the equivalence. Why? Because we're more equivalent if we don't know who wants it or who desires to do it or who we probably know who can do it. But we nominate that person. Now, what does that person do if they want that role?
They can nominate themselves.
They nominate themselves. Well, is that egotistical? No, it's just how we do it. It's just part of the process. It's basically not, I think I'm great and you should choose me, and I think, it's not an ego thing. It's a here's how I'm letting you know I want to do it by nominating myself. That's all it is. It's kind of simple. Okay. We don't seek the perfect candidate. You know that already. That candidate only needs to be good enough for now and safe enough to try. And that's it.
You didn't talk about not having a dialogue during the round, did you?
Okay. We could if we wanted to, but you know what it requires to have one, don't you?
Consent.
Mm-hmm. It does. Because maybe we want to ask people things about themselves before we go forward. On the one hand, we can do that, but there's a downside. And here's what it is, as explained to me by John Buck. There may be a person who's reluctant to do a role, and they want to let everybody know that they don't want that role. But they might change their mind if they never said that, and each of us nominates them, and they give the reasons, and the person is going, oh, I didn't know you thought that about me. Oh, and they're feeling pretty good. And then everybody goes, no objection, no objection, no objection, no objection, no objection. And then the person knows that they've been selected. We start right, let's say that it was Alex, and we start right next to Alex with Molly. And then we go around and we get to him last. By this time, he might be convinced by all those great things everyone said about him, by how people changed their nomination to Alex because they were convinced by what they heard from what other people said. And also they might change their mind because of something they thought of. Okay, so he's hearing all that. It might cause him to shift his viewpoint from I don't want to do it to, okay, I'll do it since you want me to. This does happen. So we ask him last in the circle. What if he didn't want to do it? When would he let us know that, and how would he let us know that?
Make an objection?
He would object, and that's how we'd know. His objection might be something we could resolve, but we'll get into that later.